Hi there. Um, Today I will be talking about minimalism in fashion. Specifically, why we might think that fashion is synonymous with buying, and basically my argument against that, and why I think that we can actually live in a world where we actually don't buy a lot of things, but we still really do engage in fashion. And I think this has been an issue that has been really pertinent to me and something that I've thought about a lot because um, it's kind of difficult to resist the temptation of buying with all the really great marketing out these days that makes you feel like you want to buy a set number of pieces from a collection or two, and so I really just wanted to talk about how maybe you could try and curb um, your spending when it comes to clothes, and what minimalism is, because I think that that kind of falls under the branch of minimalism. Um, so I think that I originally thought that fashion was a hobby where you kind of just do a lot of research, right? You figure out the best piece for you, right, based on your personal style, whatever the fuck that means. You figure out, okay, I really like coats, so I'm gonna look for a black coat that's made of, I don't know, wool gabardine. I want it to flow like this. I want it to be all the way down to my knees. And you look for this very, very specific coat, and then you buy it, you get it, you feel the instant gratification, and then you're like, well, that's it. Time to go on to the next piece. And you keep researching and buying and researching and buying. And my argument, and I think that a lot of people will agree with this, is that that is really unsustainable and also creates a lot of this sort of like internal turmoil because you'll buy something and maybe it won't be, maybe it will be the greatest thing ever, right? But that satisfaction is going to wear off, right? And so the idea is not to keep buying in order to feel satisfied, but to somehow feel satisfied with a completed wardrobe. And I think that that can be very, very difficult because I think minimalism is kind of hard to define. So, is minimalism 10 pieces in your wardrobe, 15 pieces, 20 pieces? How do you feel like you have everything that you need, right? How do you not feel bored, right? So I think that all these questions are really important. So I wanted to first try and understand what minimalism really is. So I think like a sort of rough definition of minimalism is trying to water down your wardrobe into its most essential aspects, right? Into basically strictly what you need. Now, need in a fashion sense is really subjective, right? So, do you need more than two pairs of pants? Probably not, but do you need more than two pairs of pants to express a variety of emotion? Yes. So I think that that would change based on how you sort of view fashion. But currently in my wardrobe, I have about 15 pieces of clothing, and I think that that really suffices for me. I have one bag, this bag over here, and one pair of shoes, just these shoes. So, point is, I think that like it's very doable, right? Now, am I the most satisfied right now? Maybe not. Do I feel like buying things? Yes, but I think that I'm satisfied with what I have. And as long as I'm satisfied with what I have, I feel like I don't really need to buy a lot because I feel like I'm able to sort of consistently come up with new combinations and ideas and stuff like that. So I think that like minimalism is trying to cut down to those bare essentials basically. And I think it's very attractive because I think that a lot of people are unfortunately, especially people who have thought about fashion a lot or have been in the industry or been just thinking about fashion for a while. I think that people are really burnt out and really tired of just like buying things, right? And so I think that minimalism is really attractive. But I think some possible counter arguments are that you might want to express a very big variety of things, right? And you might have a lot of interests, right? And so if you have a lot of interests, you want to express all those interests, and you end up finding that minimalism is not right for you. And I think that that's okay, but but I think that like you should still try and find a sort of happy medium for yourself in terms of what you're buying. Because I don't think that unrestrained buying is good for the mental, for the wallet, for anything, right? So I think that if we are to think about sustainability not in terms of just the environment, but also in terms of our own mental health, I think that minimalism can be very, very important. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying that you still need to buy clothes, right? So like clothes are good. You're obviously in this hobby to think about, buy, look at clothes. So we don't want to not buy clothes, right? So we do want to wear things, right? That would be nice. But we do want to wear as few things as possible. And I'll come to maybe what my solution is in a second. But I think that the last two things that I'll talk about is first that the reason as to why I think minimalism is so hard to define is because I think we constantly keep shifting the goalpost, and I've been very much a victim of this, where I say, okay, I'm gonna buy these three things and then I'm done, no more. The wardrobe is complete, and then I'm like, well, I don't really like this part or that part, and I start to become like a perfectionist, right? And so I think that what I'll say is that you need to let go of that perfectionism. There is no perfect wardrobe. Your brain likes novelty, and so what will end up happening is that you'll end up saying, oh, okay, this is not that novel anymore, I need to replace it, and you keep replacing. And I think that is very largely unproductive, right? And so I think that it's very, very, very important to just let go and say, okay, I bought this and now I'm done. I'm not buying anything anymore because good is good enough. And I think that there are some things in your wardrobe that might need to get replaced, but I think that you should think very, very hard about whether you should expand your wardrobe by X, Y, and Z pieces even after you feel satisfied, right? So try to stop from shifting the goalpost, because I think that then minimalism becomes a little bit tricky to define. Finally is, I think, a point that has been reiterated by a lot of people, at least like fashion people that I've watched, which is that content is trying to sell you a lie, right? So they're trying to sell you a sort of aesthetic or a micro trend or whatever, and these aesthetic and micro trends are purely made for you to buy as much as possible, right? They're not meant in your best interest. They're not meant to help you express your personal style, whatever that might be. And so I think that like largely moving yourself away from fashion content is honestly not a bad idea, especially the fashion content that really is centered on pickups and sort of like hauls and stuff like that. I don't think that stuff is productive, nor is the content that says top 5 things you should take a look at or top 10 things you should buy. Like that content is probably not good, especially if you're trying to identify clothes that are really personal to you. I think that the nature of those clothes being on lists means that it's kind of difficult for you to generate a more personal sort of style off of things that you kind of copy paste off the internet. Now, obviously, nobody's going to be completely original with how they dress, right? There's 7-8 billion people on this earth. You probably dress like many people, right? But the idea is to get a little bit more of an authentic sort of version of yourself. And I'll talk about, I'm probably going to come up with a video about like the corification of fashion and stuff like that in a little bit. But this video is specifically about minimalism, so I'm going to continue with that. Finally, I'm going to get to my solution now. So this is what I like to do, and this is what I think has helped me right now for 2 things. First is maintain as minimal of a wardrobe as possible, and second is able to sort of allow me to express a personal style, whatever that may be. So I'm going to start with the idea of like a personal style really quick. And I think that ultimately people overcomplicate the idea of personal style. It's really not that deep. It's really just, uh, do you like the clothes? And do they fit into basically a mold of what you think clothing for you should look like? So not clothing on other people, but clothing for you specifically. So I think that that is very important because I think that certain clothing looks better on certain people, right? So for example, for me personally, I tend to only wear very long dress shirts, right? Like to my knees, right? Almost like tunic style, right? And I wear turtlenecks, and that's it. Two things. And that really helps me, one, sort of build a core identity of what I wear. So when somebody sees a specific silhouette, which is the baggy pant and a tunic, they think, oh, that's me, right? Or they think really long turtleneck, that's me, right? And so, and I really like these items and how they frame the face and how they sort of make my body look, right? So for specifically for me, I really like these pieces, right? I have also found that jewelry is not necessarily my biggest. I'm not the biggest fan of jewelry, right? And so I choose to actively scale back from jewelry, right? I would say t-shirts are not really my thing. I like to stay completely covered up, not for any religious reasons or anything, just because I think that I look better that way. So yeah, so I think that like you should be able to express your personal taste through how you wear things, right? And that doesn't necessarily need to be stuff that other people wear. It just needs to be stuff that you feel like flatters you and you like the most. And that's really all that matters. So this is what I like to do with every single piece or that I might have in my wardrobe is I like to compartmentalize. So for tops, I like to make sure that I'm only, if I'm buying stuff, I'm only buying tunics and turtlenecks. That's about it. I mean, there's literally nothing else top wise in my wardrobe. And then within those two categories, you can have a little bit of variation. But the idea is you don't need five different colors of one idea, right? One color, right? So this tunic is like rather sheer. You can't really see it. It's a Professor E tunic, and it has this very interesting prick stitch detailing, right? And these are like basically completely sheer, which is really interesting, right? And it has that really nice length. But I don't have any other black tunics, right? I have one black shirt that I can tuck in, and one black shirt from Post Archive Faction that actually has like a hood, right? So it gives me some sort of functionality. But the point is that I have multiple pieces that may be black in color, but have completely different functionality. And so I try to not overlap in terms of functionality, right? So really trying to make sure that you have clothes for every single style, but not multiple clothes of every single style, if that kind of makes sense, right? So sticking to like one piece for one style, right? So I think it is five like shirts, right? Whether they be really long shirts or slightly shorter shirts so I can tuck them in, right? Um, I have like five shirts, right? And then I have three turtlenecks because I realized, okay, I need a brown one, right? Because I think that some color, some pop of color can actually be really good. I have a black sort of like speckled one for interesting texture. And then I have another one from Yoji with a sort of design on it, right? So it's nice to have a couple statement pieces in your wardrobe. And so I think that that is really important. Um, but I think I like to stick with couple of styles. So like in terms of pants, right? Three of my pants are trousers and specifically flowy trousers, right? So let's say that you're only into jeans, only buy jeans, don't buy anything else, right? Um, but I specifically like pants that flow really well. So then I also have a pair of Hakama pants, and that's it, four pairs of pants, right? And they're in a couple different colors, right? So and different textures, right? Obviously, so I can sort of play around with those, but that's about it, right? I don't think that I like anything other than trousers and I mean, one pair of Hakama pants. I don't really fuck with shorts, or I don't think that like more rigid pants really suit my style all that well. And so I think that like sort of narrowing down into a type of clothing for each sort of set of body parts is nice. So a set of pants that feels really you, a set of tops that feels really you, and then obviously a pair of shoes. Now, I think for ultra minimalism, I'd say a pair of black boots is the best way to go, and you don't need more than one pair of black boots because they all basically save this. They basically all have the same purpose, right? So again, one pair, black boots. These are really chunky, and I think that I really like that because all my pants are flowy and quite big. And so the chunky boots go well. And that's it, one pair of shoes. I realized I need a pop of color in my wardrobe, red bag. That's it, right? And so I think that like if you're able to sort of compartmentalize like that and really figure out what you specifically like and not really jump around too much, I think that that's the best way to do things. The other thing I will say is that when you're trying to think about minimalism, you need to stay minimal in terms of color, right? And pattern, right? So I know some people have like a really sort of patterny sort of wardrobe where they have tons of prints and stuff like that. I think that's fine, but I think that ultimately those can be hard to style, and you need to think about stylability, right? So like, can this thing go with literally everything? If it can't, you'll get bored faster, right? And we're trying to not be bored, but we're trying to stay minimalistic, right? So we're trying to create enough options for ourselves, not too many options, not too few options, right? So sort of staying in that middle ground for ourselves, right? And so I think that like these strong visions of what you think looks good can be incredibly valuable. And I think that to me personally is personal style, because it is personally what you like to wear, right? I don't think personal style is anything more complicated than that. I don't think that clothes are a huge like expression of emotion or of some sort of identity or whatever, right? I really don't think it's that deep, and I don't think we need to make it that deep. I think it's simply you should wear the clothes that you like, but you should really try and figure out what you like and only wear what you like, right? There shouldn't be any sort of posing as something that you're not. And so, yeah, I think that there are a couple of sort of issues that I immediately had, right? So first is, what if I feel dissatisfied, right? What if after having clothes for a while, I'm like, I need some new ideas, some new sort of ways of wearing things, right? So I think that one, it's important to start experimenting with how you wear things, right? So shirt can be worn so many different ways, different tucks, stuff like that. And so I think that like thinking about those things is really important. I think second thing is maybe you do have too few pieces of clothing, and in that case, it might be okay to buy one more piece of clothing if that makes sense for your current wardrobe condition, right? So I think that another question, right, that could be sort of asked is, what if you hate your wardrobe? Like, what if you hate the style, right? What if your brain changes, right? I'd argue that it can be good to just stick with that style anyways, right? And sort of wait it out. Because you might throw away your wardrobe, be like, I hate this, and then in 2 weeks be like, oh, I really like that, I just need a little bit of a break, right? And what I do when I need a little bit of a break from clothes is I just don't wear my clothes, right? I don't go naked, but like I kind of take some more time alone, sit in my PJs, stuff like that, right? And so I think that you can always learn to like your wardrobe if you just spend a little bit of time away from it. And most people who are going to work and stuff like that can't wear their wardrobe every day, and so I think that's perfectly fine. Another concern is like, what if you keep trying to upgrade your clothes and you have this sense of perfectionism? I talked about this perfectionism thing before, but good is kind of good enough, and you need to stop at some point, right? So what better time to stop than now? You don't need the best quality cashmere jumper that money can find. You don't. All right. You are fine with like a mid-level sort of cashmere jumper. It is basically the same quality, and you just need to stop buying, right? You're trying to stop buying, and so I think that thinking about upgrades up to a point is fine, right? If you have really ratty clothes, I think that like maybe upgrading is nice, but not too much, because it's a very slippery slope. Once you start upgrading, you feel like you need to upgrade everything, and it becomes very difficult to sort of stop yourself, right? And so this is kind of my thoughts on minimalism in fashion. I think that it's really important to figure out what you like personally. And I think that that is the best way to create the most minimalistic wardrobe, is just to focus on a couple pieces, types of pieces that you like, and then only buying those things. And that can also help you sort of find a personal style. Thank you.